Hey everyone, I wanted to make a video for all of you on this bleak day here in Colorado, which usually is not this bleak from a temperature perspective. And I did just get back from Texas. It was my first time in Texas. I could not believe how hot it was this time of year. Well, I lived in Florida for 10 years, so I do have an idea, but I just didn't imagine it was going to be 97 degrees Fahrenheit. So what, 35, 34 degrees Celsius in fall? I mean, holy crap. So that was fun. So traveling is always a good time. I love traveling because I can use that as an excuse to eat at different restaurants, which Erica isn't a big fan of. She likes eating out at restaurants, but one of her main thing is she just doesn't feel that great when she eats all that fried food because you're in Texas. And I was like, we are coming back much heavier. So, which is a great, especially because I struggle with body dysmorphia for so long, but this actually rolls perfectly into the video I want to talk about today, which is hormones. Okay, so serotonin, dopamine, neurotransmitters, just basically the neurophysiology and neuropathology of the brain, and why this stuff just doesn't play as big of a part with OCD as most people believe. And the hormone stuff is unfortunately extremely outdated, and it never really had any strong grounding anyway. But back in the day, the evidence that we had and what we thought was the correct thing to do when it came to mental health disorders, and again, this isn't knocking medication. Always speak to your provider on medications, because medications can help save lives, and a lot of people get great benefits from medications. I would say, 50 to 75% of the people that we work with are on some sort of medications for their primary care, wherever they may live, and it helps ease symptoms a lot. I always tell people I did myself probably a major disservice by not taking medications and feeling the full brunt of that anxiety, but a part of me is very happy I did that for myself. Own personal reasons, and just kind of what it did to me from a perspective of like, I just gave myself the opportunity to face this in a way that was just absolutely completely brutal, and that was the main thing that I experienced, and yeah, it ended up being pretty crazy, to be honest. So before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that what's up link down below. You can message Phil directly. We can get people in right away. Like I said, we work with all different time zones, and we got translator calls, and then we work with, like I said, that we have the WhatsApp groups, which are great service when people come in. That's probably one of the best things about the service. When Rob was setting up these WhatsApp groups, he realized that people felt very alone, and it's just, I know I went a little bit off topic in the beginning of this, but a lot of people do ask me about the WhatsApp groups, and they are just a lot of fun. They're great. We poke fun at one another, but we take it very serious, and it's very customizable, and you get that service when you come to coaching calls and webinar services. So what do we know about hormones? That stabilizing hormones does not, most of the time, when I say most of the time, never. I've never seen a case myself. So it's a track record of 0 with chronic OCD. It never changes the underlying belief system. So the underlying belief system will remain, even though maybe there is some stabilization going on neurophysiologically, okay? So the other thing that people want to remember is, hormones, when it comes to your gut, this is a big thing that many people are going down right now. So whether it's coming down to probiotics, I almost just walked the wrong way, probiotics, and always needing something to go in your system and stabilize that gut-brain axis, and you're doing all the researching and the Googling. Look, we get it. There's a lot of research out there, and a lot of it is cool. It's awesome stuff. When I was in graduate school, I loved learning about this stuff. I still do. I just don't see a need to look at it anymore because it doesn't really benefit my life too much, in the sense of like constantly chasing it. I've had this realization of many different topics throughout my life. It wasn't just the anatomy stuff or the hormone stuff. So you want to be careful with that stuff, not from a sense of a harm sense, in the sense of you're looking for a quick fix. And again, always speak to your provider about the neurotropic medications, because again, they can really help someone take the edge off, which gives them a better idea of how to work on their beliefs. But it is important to state that if you never even heard the word dopamine or serotonin, or didn't even know how to spell those words, you could still recover from OCD. You could still break those belief systems down. And it's always weird when I go back to sea level, then kind of come back here. I'm like walking around, I'm like, why am I winded? Because I just came from sea level, and now I'm at 7,000 feet again. Funny tidbit right there. But it is important to realize that you don't have to look any of that stuff up. You would be surprised on how many people that come in and work with us who are medical doctor neurologists, so MD neurologists, who have masters or PhDs in neuroscience, who work in the medication field, of neuroscience or are high up in the medical field, and they don't get it. And they say that. They go, I know everything about the brain. I've worked with many people like this. I've worked with PhDs in psychology. I've worked with medical doctors on a wide spectrum of different specialties, and they all say the same thing. I just didn't learn this stuff in school because they didn't have OCD, so they didn't know. And I need someone who has a more specialized touch with your specific thing that you're working on. So that's always a very important thing to cover. So you got to be careful when you're going down the research route and the Googling route, because that's what many of you will be doing. You're going to be going to Google. You're going to be looking up symptoms. And this is the other thing that many people miss, is that symptoms, Googling and researching symptoms tends to be one of the number one compulsions that I see in the WhatsApp group, in the Facebook groups. So like our Facebook group, if you're not a member of it, join it, please. It's the fastest growing Facebook group in OCD and anxiety. We're almost at 19,000 members. Sometimes it grows by 30 people a day. It's amazing. Great community. We put all of our articles in there. It's a great time. That's how people get access to us and find our stuff. The community is just a well-oiled machine. It's just great. We're very much involved in it. And I see a lot of people ask questions about anti-anxiety or SSRI medication side effects. And I see this on a daily basis. I see it all the time. I'm convinced it's in the top 3 most commonly asked reassurance questions in that group. And you're going to have to sit with that discomfort of not knowing. And you have to also sit with the discomfort of the fear, where what if I take these medications and they're not good for me, and then they mess my hormones up even more, and they make me worse? This is a possibility. These medications that you could take could mess you up. That's why we have side effects. It's just part of the deal. It's like starting a business. There's side effects to starting a business. You might have to work an extra job. You might not make any profit for a while. These things are the known realities of when you do something, and side effects for medications are very well known. So it is very important to cover that, because that fear of what if I do this and do that. So let's take a little bit of time of talking about the neurophysiology and neuroanatomy of the brain structures, because this is something that I get asked a lot about, the prefrontal cortex and the downregulation of the limbic system and everything that's inside of the limbic system, and we get asked these on a daily basis. Okay. You don't have to know any of that stuff. Cool stuff really has absolutely no application to your recovery whatsoever, besides being able to brag at dinner parties about neuroscience, which, to be honest, isn't even really that cool anyway. Because it comes off as like, I know better than you, and I know more than you because I know neurology and this and that. And then we're watching all these podcasts, and you see all these big YouTubers and gurus talking about how important it is to understand the brain. It's not important to understand the brain at all, unless you're in the field and you're developing in innovations and technologies. Sorry, I'm getting a little sick. Erica got me sick. Thank you, Erica. So, yeah, it's just not really, it's not necessary. What's necessary is changing your beliefs. I'll give you an example. Every single day I work with people, and I'm surrounded by people in my real life who are doing things that undermine the reality of making change, which is belief in behaviors and willpower. No matter what books are telling you, no matter what anyone says about plastic surgery or doing all these other tricks and tips, the belief work and the behaviors change your life. It's been around for thousands of years. Stoicism has been around for a long time. Okay, Aristotle was born 2,600 years ago. This stuff is not new age material. We're always looking for new age stuff because we want sleep, we want better, we want the new hormones. Speaking about hormones, on the last thing I want to talk about is this HRT, TRT, anabolic world that people are living in, whether it's injectables from your hormone doctor, your endocrinologist, always talk to them, estrogen, all that stuff, pellets in the gluteal region. Is it necessary? No. Do I understand why people take it? Sure. Because we're so obsessed. I just got back from a seminar, and I was listening to people who were in the functional medicine space talking about why everyone needs to get their hormones tested. Everyone needs to be on some sort of HRT and estrogen. Absolutely not. It's complete ludicrous. It's insanity. It's absolutely not needed. I understand why people do it. Well, my test is low and I'm afraid of being not manly enough, or I'm afraid of being a weak person, or I'm afraid of having ED, erectile dysfunction, or any of that stuff. You have the rejection side, but then you have the fear of not having enough muscle. But having muscle and looking good is just a small piece of life. It's not your entire life. And until we work on that, it's really hard to get underneath those fears. So these are just things I want to touch on, you know. If you're working with an HRT doctor, we understand why you do it. If you're doing HRT because you're afraid of not being manly enough in this hyper-masculine society, look, I'm going to be very honest with you. I would say I'm quite masculine in many ways. I like to work out. I like to do tough challenges. I never think about my masculinity, ever. The people that talk about their masculinity, which is interesting, like the Pearsons of the world, I don't even think are masculine. So it's an interesting thing to me when they're the ones that are always like masculine this, masculine that. I'm like, yeah, but you're not really even that masculine. You're kind of like someone that wouldn't really be asking to dig a ditch with me when I'm putting the barn in my backyard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not really masculine. You're kind of like a low frustration tolerance, complaining little person. You know, I don't mean that in like a mean way. I just like, that's not what society thinks. So it's interesting because like the definition of masculinity and what people think are masculine from a societal standpoint, which is subjective, is not what the majority of people talking about you need to be masculine or like. Or it's the other side. It's the insecure crowd, the screaming gurus on YouTube, screaming at you being like, you need to be more masculine. I don't even think like that. I just like working out, hiking mountains, and doing hard challenges. I've never looked at it from the perspective of needing to be more masculine. And then that's where the HRT problems, that's where I'm wrapping it back in. Where people are like, oh, you know, I have to do this, and I gotta be on the hormones, and I'm a weak person, and what if I don't get girls and stuff like that. So I know this was a little bit off topic in some ways, but hopefully I tied it back together for you. Remember again, phil@ocdrecovery.com. Look at the WhatsApp link down below. Remember the services. They're great services. That WhatsApp group you can get put in there if you do one of our coaching calls with our services. I take a lot of notes. It's very customizable. And we get it. We're there with you. Everyone here dedicates their entire life to helping OCD sufferers to the correct way of changing beliefs and breaking down behaviors, which is important. So thank you again, guys. And as always, have a great day.